All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our Team Journey to Jewels call tonight. My name's Ashley Frary. I'm a Ruby ambassador, and I'm really excited to continue and actually complete the series that we've been doing this month on how to help you really basically at whatever stage you find yourself in the business, whatever your goals are. So we started a couple weeks ago talking about how easy it is to get your products paid for. And last week we talked about if your goal was to make $200 to $500 a month, how to make that happen. And we kind of played out some different scenarios and put like some pen to paper, put some numbers to it, and just to kind of help you see how quickly you can start growing your paycheck. But tonight, this is our final call, and we're going to talk about how to make $1,000 a month and how to go all in with Plexus. So we have a really special, awesome guest tonight that I'm going to introduce here in just a little bit. But we are going to do things just a little bit different. So we're not going to talk numbers tonight. We are going to talk more about, I think my connection went bad. Can you guys still hear me? Can you guys still hear me? Yes, okay. So we're not going to talk numbers tonight. We're going to talk more about kind of personally what's going to be required of you to break beyond that $500 paycheck monthly, because really to continue growing that paycheck, it's just a matter of duplicating the things we talked about last week. So, we talked about reaching out to your potentials, building those relationships, gaining new customers, guiding your customers to take the products correctly, and upgrading those customers to ambassadors, gaining new ambassadors, training them, pouring into your team, growing yourself, and following up with everybody. And that's really the process involved for duplication, just repeating that process over and over. So really to get that paycheck to continue growing, it's just a matter of kind of putting those mechanics into action. But there's more involved to that, because there is some personal development and some things that you kind of need to start looking inward in order to propel yourself and to keep moving forward. I believe in this business. So that's what we're going to really talk about tonight. And so first, I want to share just what I think one of the most important things I think are involved in moving beyond that $500 a month paycheck. And that is finding your why. And I know that when each of us join, we probably, hopefully we were all asked by our sponsor, what is your why for doing this? And I think most of us probably would say at that point, it was to get the products as cheap as possible. And if you're on this call, I think your why is probably evolved beyond that to, once you kind of get a taste for the products and how amazing they are, you kind of begin to refine your why and change it and think like, gosh, well, maybe these could help my family beyond just the health benefit, or think of all my friends and family that I could help with this. So your why begins to kind of evolve. But what I find is a lot of times we ask that question, or we're asked that question, what is your why? And we answer it, but then we kind of don't revisit the why. We just kind of toss it aside, or we don't come back to it. We just kind of say it once and it's done. And to me, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that we can make. There's a reason why you hear in Plexus, find the why that makes you cry. There's a reason why all of the leaders in our company talk about about your why a lot. And I think that's because the more connected you are to your why, the bigger it is, the bigger you dream with it, the quicker you're going to set yourself up for success in this business, because that's going to be the thing that keeps you pushing and moving when the business gets rough and when you hit those walls. So if someone were to ask you what your why is, and your answer would be something like, I just want to be successful, or I want to be a diamond, I want to be on that stage at convention, or I want to drive a Lexus. I'm not saying those are bad things, but that's not a why. That's not a why. So your why should really be something that is much more personal and much more meaningful to you, so that when you think about that why actually coming to fruition, it gets you a little emotional at the thought of that. So really pushing yourself to get to the emotion of like, gosh, if my why were to happen, if XYZ were to happen, then this would mean, blank for my family, or this would feel like blank. And I know many of you on my team that are on this call, we've talked about our whys, and I've talked with you guys about it, and we talk about revisiting that why often. And I think for most of us, there are some common threads that run through our whys. In some ways they're different, but one I hear a lot of is, I want to pay off debt or pay off, credit card or student loans. And that's a fabulous why. That's a really great one. But I really would encourage you to dig even further with that and to ask yourself, okay, not why do I want to pay off my debt? That's an easy answer, but like, why, if I paid off this debt, if we were able to pay off this debt, what would that free you and your family up to do? Would that mean, a vacation? Would that mean extra money in savings? Would that mean saying yes to something you've had to say no to for forever? And what would that feel like to be able to say yes to those things? And what will it feel like when you're able to make that final payment and get your credit card balance down to zero and your loans completely paid off, to be free of that debt and that burden? What would that feel like? To let yourself kind of feel that emotional component of it. Those, I think, are really the feelings that you need to get in touch with. And they need to be strong and they need to be powerful so that you can keep moving on those days, like I said, when you don't really want to work your business or when a customer quits. Because I can guarantee you, you will hit walls in this business. That's kind of like a guaranteed. I know that's not like really the most encouraging thing to say, but you'll hit walls in this business. You'll hit plateaus. You'll walk through valleys. Everybody goes through that. Every single person. The thing is that when you come to that crossroads, you've got the choice. You can take a right. You can go on the exit ramp and say, network marketing is not for me. This kind of business model doesn't work. My team never did what I told them to. My customers wouldn't do what I told them to. That's an option, and you can make that choice. That's a choice available to you. Or you can go left at that crossroad and say, you know what? I'm not stopping. I'm digging my heels in even deeper because my why is big enough that this one little setback is not worth it for me, to quit. So I think the people who go right do so because they have not connected to their why, or because they haven't cast a vision or a why big enough for them to stay in it. So really the choice, I think, is yours, when you come up against those obstacles and those setbacks. And so I know for me, like I say, because I get people that quit, I get customers that quit, and I tell myself, this is kind of the feedback that goes on in my head, is I say, yes, this person quit. And that's a bummer. I'm really like bummed out about that. But I know there is somebody else out there around the corner who is praying for something to help their health need that they have, a financial burden that they have. And I know I will get to be the one who has the honor of putting these products and this opportunity in their hand. And I keep going because of that. And I know every step I take in the direction of my business takes me one step closer to making my why my reality. So I won't stop, because one day I'll be able to be the person who takes my kids to school, picks them up. I can say yes to whatever, activities of theirs that I want to, without having to juggle my outside job. And that to me is freedom. And that is something I'm willing to fight for. So I'm not going to stop no matter what. So I really encourage you guys on this call, like if you don't know your why, or if you don't feel like your why is really super strong, just explore that and kind of refine it a little bit and make it big enough so that you will keep moving in this business no matter what. And get to a place where it kind of like gets you in the gut a little bit, like gets you kind of emotional. And I'm sure Tara will attest to this. Like there is not a single jewel in this company who doesn't have a crystal clear grasp on their why. Like if you ask them at the snap of a finger, they could answer what their why is. And they didn't become a jewel and then find their why. It didn't happen in that order. They found their why, and that was the driving force that helped get them, push them all the way, to jewel status. So I hope that that maybe encourages you guys a little bit. And the other thing with that is, if you're on this call and you're wanting to go all the way with Plexus, that means you're going to have a team, and finding your why is important for you, but it's important that you know how to teach your team to do the same thing. You have to help them define their why, help them stay connected to it, and let that be something that you duplicate down as well. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of share that a little bit. That's my 2 cents. But on that note, I'll go ahead and transition. And I am really super excited to have one of the, I think, most generous and sweetest and kind of sassiest people in Plexus, I think. On our call, Tara Pinney is a Sapphire ambassador. She's my friend of, gosh, almost like 17 years. It's kind of crazy. And she is an awesome teacher, an amazing trainer. She's a great leader. And anytime she shares anything about Plexus, I soak it all up. She's super smart when it comes to this business. So you guys are all in for a treat. I'm so excited to hear what she has to share. So make sure you have a pen and a piece of paper so you can take some notes. And Tara, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Let me unmute you really fast. Okay, gotcha. It's all yours.
Well, first of all, thank you, Ashley, so much for asking me to be on the call. I have to tell you guys, this is the first time I've been a guest on someone else's call. So this is a first for me. So I'm actually like a little bit, I might be turning red. I might be sweating a little bit. So just bear with me on this because this is a first. It's a big responsibility here, but I'm thrilled to do it. And I want you guys to know right now that you honestly are in the midst of changing your life. And you are in the midst of an opportunity of a lifetime. It's been said that an opportunity of a lifetime only lasts the lifetime of an opportunity. Do you guys follow what that means? Like right now, this is an opportunity of a lifetime and it's not going to be here forever. So right now is the time to grasp a hold of this and to completely change your life and change your family's life and change your future. So I kind of want to touch on a little bit of what Ashley said, and then I want to go one step further with that. So when I started Plexus, I actually started working the business about 3 years ago. I'll back up and let you know, though, that I was a wholesale ambassador for about 9 months. So I want to first start and say sometimes you have wholesale ambassadors that tell you no. Jen Hawkins is my sponsor, and I told Jen, no way, absolutely not. I am not doing this business. And as a matter of fact, I even hid her on my timeline. Didn't want to see it. Now, I loved the products. I was taking them, but I hid her. I would go every so often because I thought her kids were cute. And that's about the extent. Until one day, I just realized this is an opportunity of a lifetime. And if I don't talk to my friends and family about Plexus, then somebody else is going to. So why shouldn't it be me? Ashley talked a lot about what is your why. And that is so important to know because I promise you guys there are days, and I'm sure you've experienced the days where you wake up and you think, I do not want to follow up with one more person. I do not want to reach out to one more person. I don't even know if I want to take another pill, which, we all know what they do, but we all have those days that we're like, I just don't want to do any of it. Your why is what's going to propel you to do whatever it is that you don't want to do. Now, I want you to understand that your wants are not your why. So the things that you want, that's not really your why. For me, when I first started Plexus, I wanted to make enough money to pay tuition for my kids' school and to pay my car payment. That I wanted, but that was not my why. My why was so much bigger than that. And what's funny? I can remember the moment that I realized what my why was. And I was doing a meeting in Ponca City, Oklahoma, with my mom. And I started talking, I was closing the meeting and I was talking about why am I even doing Plexus? And I started to cry. And if you know me, I am not a crier. Like you could ask Ashley, I just don't cry at all. I'm probably more sarcastic than anything because I don't cry. So anyway, I started to cry because what I said, I realized this is why I'm doing Plexus. And what my why was is my husband has had a job. He loved it. He's a financial advisor and he's an amazing financial advisor. This is not a plug for him. This is part of my why, just so you know. He's amazing at his job. And how many people do you know in your life that feel like they have this glass ceiling over their head, right? Like they could do so much more, but yet they can't. They have the vision for it, but they can't go any further because of this glass ceiling. Or maybe they have more skills than what they're being paid for. So the situation with my husband is he was working in a bank setting and he had this idea for a business model that was so grandiose, but there is no way that anyone at the bank was ever going to let him do this because it just didn't fit their model. But I knew if only he had the opportunity to go out and create and live this dream of his, it would absolutely change his life and change our life. And that became my why. My why became, let's figure out a way for him to be able to quit his job and go open up his own business. Now, y'all know how expensive it is to open up a business. We talked about it a lot because we would dream about it. But you know what? There was no way that it was ever going to happen. It was strictly a dream until Plexus came along. And then I started to see glimpses that this dream really could become our reality. And so then it developed into my why. And every single day, I told myself, you know what? Every day for 18 months, I am going to do something Plexus related. Every day. My why propelled me on the days I didn't want to. Every day. Sometimes I had great job. He enjoyed his job. He might not have been living his dream. You know, I was working part-time. It was okay. Our kids were great. We had a great life. So what if it didn't work out? Oh, well, not a big deal. But what if everything completely changed? And I can tell you guys that 13 months after I decided to go all in with Plexus, he walked away from his corporate job. And we didn't have to worry about taking out a loan, because we had income coming in from Plexus while he completely walked away from the income he was making, and he completely started over. And I can promise you guys, this never, ever, 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 ever would have happened if it wasn't for Plexus. But remember, my want was just to get to get my car paid for and put my kids in school. My why was so much bigger. So when you're thinking about that, and here's the thing, there are going to be some people, and they may not ever quite develop their why. I'm talking about maybe people on your team, okay? It may be that for some people, all they want is fun money. Now, that's not who I'm going to talk to tonight, okay? I am talking to the people who are all in, 100%, have this huge why, and want to change their life. That's who I'm going to talk to, okay? Because I want to talk about going completely all in with Plexus and what that might look like. And so it's going to look a little bit different for everybody, but there are 3 points that I want to go over. But first, I'm going to tell you a story. It's the fable of the chicken and the pig. And this is used to really illustrate the differing levels of maybe participation, okay? Or how involved you're going to get into a project. So here's the basic fable. A chicken and a pig are walking down the road, and the chicken says, "Hey, pig, I want to open up a restaurant." And the pig replies, "Okay, so what do you want to call the restaurant?" And the chicken responds and says, "How about we call it Ham and Eggs?" And the pig thinks for just a minute and says, "No thanks, because I'd be committed, but you would only be involved." Do you get it? Ham is truly committed to a restaurant called Ham and Eggs, where the chicken, they're just kind of involved. Okay, we're talking about 2 very different levels of involvement, right? So you have to decide, are you a pig or are you a chicken? Are you involved or are you committed? There's a very big difference. So you say you're all in with Plexus. That's who we're talking to tonight, right? You say you're all in. And you have this understanding, you have to understand that if, wanting to be a jewel or wanting to quit your job or have a Lexus or have a 6-figure income, having a trip to Hawaii, wanting those things is not enough. That's not enough. Which leads me to my very first point, which is wanting is just a thought. It's not an action. it's a thought and a desire, which is important. You need to have the want, because the want can propel you to the action, but desire alone isn't enough. You have to put daily, consistent action behind that want or desire. Remember I said when I first started Plexus, I was going to work it every single day for 18 months, not skip a day, every day. So how often do you maybe not post on Facebook every day, or you don't do something Plexus related every day? And you know what? Sometimes it might mean that you're reading an article about how chromium helps with blood sugar. That's something Plexus related because you're learning something about it, right? So it may be that that's all you have time for that day, and that's okay. Other days, you might have time to, if you live a really busy life, maybe one day you take it and you sit down. I don't have my calendar up here, but if I did, I could show you that I'll sit down and I will track out all of the posts that I'm going to make. I have about 4 different pages. And so I'll say, on personal page, I'm going to post this and this on this day. On my big team page, I'm going to post this. On my leaders page, I'm going to post this. On my level 1 page, I'm going to post this. And so I have it all tracked out. That takes me a whole lot longer than maybe reading a couple of articles or watching a couple of videos. And sometimes a video, you can find them and they're 10 minutes. And sometimes you can find them for 3 minutes. And sometimes you can find them that are an hour. But you can find all of those. I mean, you can fit it in. It might be as you're driving in the car to pick up your kids. It might be as you're driving on the way to work. There are ways to fit Plexus in. You may just have to look for them. But commit and say every single day, and give yourself a time, for 18 months, every single day, I am going to do Plexus. What if nothing changes? What are you out? But what if everything changes? You have to have daily, consistent action behind what you're doing. Okay, behind, your want, desire, your why. Second point, number 2, sacrifice is going to be necessary. If you're all in, which that's who we're talking to, remember, you're going to have to sacrifice on missing some things. Like, that's just the way that it is in order for you to have the freedom later. So I think back to whenever I was in that year, and I can talk a lot about sacrifices now, but let's talk about when I was first starting. There were times that, I had an 18-month-old baby at the time, and there were times that my husband was put him to sleep because I was working on Plexus. There were some times that due to me working and doing a meeting, I didn't go out for girls' night when my girlfriends would go out. There were some times, even now, that I've missed some of my daughter's soccer games. Okay, now, but what has that given me? That has given my husband and I the freedom that whenever we go on summer vacation, we both say, how long do you want to be gone for? Because no one has to tell us when we have to show up to work, where we have to be, how much vacation we can take. No one tells us that. So those small sacrifices, was it worth it for me to miss one of my daughter's soccer games or 2 of my daughter's soccer games so that we could have the type of freedom and say, let's go on a 9-day vacation and no one's telling us, and we'll do it with our kids and have the time of our life? Absolutely, it was worth it. Because the choices that we're making now is a type of freedom that we never imagined that we would have. And it was worth me missing a few episodes of Scandal or Grey's Anatomy or The Bachelor. I don't watch that, but someone might. But, it's worth missing some of those episodes, some of that TV, some of those girls' nights, because now I have the freedom to choose. Here's an example. I'm in a carpool with some of my daughter's friends for school, and they all work. The ones that we do in the afternoon. And one of them today said, I'm stuck at work. Tara, can you go get them? Because they know what my schedule is. Yep, sure, absolutely. I would be happy to. My cousin sent a message today and said, I've got a meeting that's come up. It's kind of an emergency, and I can't take my son with me. Can you watch him? Absolutely. Yes, I can do that because I have the freedom to do it. I have the freedom to make those choices. Yesterday, I took the day off and took my son to the Science Museum because I had the choice. So I say all of that not to say, look at all these great choices I have, but instead to say, I sacrificed putting my kids to bed. I sacrificed TV. I sacrificed, even time with my husband, because there might've been a meeting that I wanted to go to. So think on this. If you have a job and you have a mandatory meeting that you're supposed to go to, do you show up? If you don't, you're going to get fired, right? Because it's mandatory. But how often do we make excuses not to show up at Plexus events? How often do we say, you know what, I know there's a training, just right down the road, but I just really don't want to go tonight. We've got to practice. We've got this, we've got that, and I don't want to go. Again, you know what? And sometimes, let me say, sometimes you cannot go. And I totally understand that. I am not saying, every single event you have to miss in your life. But sometimes we make excuses that really aren't reasons, because an excuse is very different than a reason. For example, Super Saturday is coming up on January 7th. How many have marked that off on your calendar? No, tickets aren't for sale yet. Good job. Tickets aren't for sale yet, but how many of you have said, regardless, this is where I will be on January 7th? If my daughter has a soccer tournament on January 7th and she plays competitive soccer, guess where I'm going to be on January 7th? I'm going to be at Super Saturday. So, I think when we're talking about sacrifice, does that mean that I'm saying don't spend any time with your family, don't go to any soccer games, don't go to this, don't go to that? Absolutely not. Sometimes you need to go to girls' night because you just need a break. But I'm also saying don't let excuses keep you from growing, okay? So if you're all in, then just understand that there are going to be sacrifices. Number 3, going all in means that you have to treat Plexus as though it's your job. Now, remember I said there are some people that aren't to the point where their goal is jewel status or quitting their job or, 6-figure income. Remember, I'm talking to the people who that's what they want, that they are all in and they want to go all the way to the top of Plexus. This is who I'm talking to. When you start working Plexus as though your water bill depends on it, or as though your mortgage depends on it, that's a very different type of commitment. So often we look at it and, it might be that we look at this and think, you know what? I just want a little extra fun money. And so it doesn't become that priority. But if you were to say, you know what if I treated Plexus as though my mortgage depended on it? Would you work differently? Because now that my mortgage depends on it, remember my husband quit his job and he's building this business, you better believe I work it differently. And I look at it differently. So if you want to go all in, make sure that your action matches your goals. If your action does not match what your current goals are, then you need to do one of 2 things. You either need to reevaluate your action or you need to reevaluate your goals. But you want to make sure that your action matches your goals. So with that, I want to say thank you for letting me be on here. I hope that it was helpful. The beauty of Plexus is you get to choose. The beauty is no one is going to tell you what you have to do or what you don't have to do. That gets to be you. And therefore, you only have to answer to yourself. But make sure that if you are all in, that you are really all in, and that you have to work for it, and that you have to put action behind it, and that you are going to have to sacrifice and treat it like it's a job. And then I think you'll see that your life will completely change. So, Ashley, thank you so much.
Tara, thank you. Oh my goodness. I was like frantically trying to write down notes super fast. But I love, and I've heard your why before and part of your story, but one thing I always love that you say is when you first started and you just made that decision of like, I'm going to give this 13 months. Like, and I think that's good for all of us, is just getting a time frame and saying, I'm going to do it something every day for my business, because regardless, those months will go by and I'll either be right where I am, or what if, who knows what, and just to see how much has changed for you in that 13 months. That's always one of my favorite parts of your story. But one thing I love, that fable is always so good. And I think it's kind of when you relate that to like your team and training, the importance of knowing, like how you said, everyone's why. There may be people on your team who their why is, I just want some fun money. And that is okay. But knowing that and knowing, okay, you know what? They're involved, they're the chicken. So I'm going to help the chicken get their why, but then I'm going to go find I'm going to go find my pigs, and I'm going to find the people who want to be committed, and I'm going to help them go all the way. And I think it will alleviate some of that frustration that we have a lot of times where we're trying to make chickens pigs. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, if you understand, and Ashley said earlier that I hope that your sponsor had asked you what your why was. I hope you've done the same thing for yours. And you're going to have some chickens, and that's okay, because you know what? We need chickens.
Yeah.
You have to have chickens in this business. And the chickens are the ones that you care for and you take care of and you feed them. The pigs are the ones that you've really got to focus on and, get them well prepared for so that they can go forward and do what they have been called to do. Right. So you can look at your team. I think that's a great way to look at it though, Ash, is, look at it from both directions. And you need chickens. You have to have chickens, but you also need pigs.
Right. And it's hard when you have a chicken who could be a really good pig, but they don't see it that way. That's where it gets really hard.
And it does get hard. But you know what? If you love on that chicken and you help them and you guide them, at some point they may come around and they may say, you know what? I'm ready to call myself a pig. Yeah. And because you never know. But if you just let your chickens go and you're like, you know what? You're not a pig, so I'm just going to go and do whatever, and I'm just going to focus on the pigs, and you don't pay any attention to the chickens, it's likely that they probably will never. But if they know that you're there and you're helping them and, all of that, then I think there's a much better chance that they will come back around. But you can't be the one to decide which one they're going to be. That's their decision. That goes back to, this is your business. You're the CEO of your business. And if you want your business to be, XYZ, then you decide that. If you just want your business to be, an extra $500 a month, then you get to decide that. And both of those are amazing decisions because as we know, $500 can do a lot. You can do a lot with $500. You can do a lot with $200. So, but you can also do a lot with, going all in and completely changing your life.
Well, and then the other thing I circled was just where you were talking about sacrifice, because that is a big one that we talk a lot about too on our team. But just, I think, and if I'm hearing you right, it's kind of like, especially those of us who are working a different job, Plexus is kind of like our supplemental, and we want to get to where it's, the other way around, where we're able to make that our main job. But is it kind of like you do have to go through a period of like a period where you're really stretched and you're trying to set you're giving to your prior commitments, and then you're trying to give to Plexus, and it's going to be a little uncomfortable, and to kind of get comfortable with that a little bit?
Yeah. And I think that's exactly what it is. I mean, you have to get to the point where you realize, you know what, I might not sleep as much as I had been. I might not be watching those shows. You take something that you enjoy, and then you probably are going to have to put Plexus in place of it. Mm-hmm. So, for me, I might have enjoyed watching a show with my husband, and that was kind of a thing that we used to do pre-Plexus. We would sit down on the couch and we would watch TV together. And after Plexus, that looked different. It might have been, I'm up here doing a phone call. It might have been, you know what, I'm still working Plexus and I'm still sitting beside him and he's watching whatever show he wanted to watch, but I'm getting some work done. So it just might look a little bit different than what it had before. And I'll say, I haven't missed a million soccer games. It's not that I've abandoned my family. I've not abandoned my children or my husband or anything along those lines. But I have realized that, you know what, the sacrifice that I am making for Plexus is worth it in the end. And at the moment, sometimes you might wonder and you might think, gosh, is the sacrifice really worth it? But in the end, absolutely.
And I think just sometimes there are sacrifices we have to make for our like regular job, and we do it because we have to, but those sacrifices are never going to bring us the freedom of choice. You know what I'm saying? It's never going to get, you do it because you have to, but it's not going to bring that freedom that you can have with Plexus. So well, Tara, honestly, thank you. If you guys have any questions, you can ask. I hope that's okay, Tara. Yeah, I'm going to stop the recording though. And then if you guys have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask her. But thank you guys all for joining us. I really appreciate it.